Welcome back, my lovely students of grade 4. We will continue our science lessons starting with lesson 5 of this week of chapter 6, which we talk about where is Earth's water. The lesson will be divided into two parts. The first part will be the surface water, then the second part will be the groundwater. Let's explore together our lesson. I know that you are exploring more about water. You know more information about water, but in today's lesson we will explore more and more and in detail. Let's get started. So in the figure of the lesson here, you can note that the Earth's water can be divided into parts. The large part here from the figure in the beginning represented by oceans or salty water. The second part, which is a small part, is fresh water. So Earth's water is consisted of surface water and groundwater.
When you turn on a faucet in your house, do you know where the water is coming from? Let's find out. Almost 3/4 of Earth's surface is covered with water. Some of this water is frozen in glaciers. Liquid water is found in rivers, lakes, the ocean, and other bodies of water. When water gets hot enough, it turns into an invisible gas called water vapor. Water vapor is a part of the atmosphere. Surface water is any water that is above the ground on Earth. The ocean is surface water. It is a large body of salt water. Ocean water is not healthy for drinking. Lakes, ponds, and rivers are also surface water. They are made of fresh water. Only 3% of Earth's water is fresh water. People need fresh water for drinking, cooking, and growing crops. When rain falls, some of the water soaks into the ground. Groundwater is any water that is underground. There is more fresh liquid water underground than on Earth's surface. Groundwater is not trapped underground. It can flow slowly through most types of soil. People need clean water for drinking, cooking, and other activities, but fresh water from under the ground and surface water isn't always clean. Water treatment plants filter and clean the water. The clean water then travels in pipes to people's homes and businesses. Got it? Sure you do.
So from the previous video, you can imagine that water is everywhere. You can find water in oceans and rivers, ponds, lakes, everywhere you can find. You can feel also the greatest of Allah, because Allah created water, which is one of the main factors for living. In the Holy Quran, Allah said, we made from water all living things. So without water, no life, guys. That's why our planet, which is Earth's planet, is distinguished from the other planets, because the presence of water, which make life inside our planet. Let's deal with some information about today's lesson. Let's get started with the surface water definition. The surface water is any water that is above the ground on Earth. In the surface of the Earth, you can find surface water. You can see surface water in different bodies. What is the bodies? Bodies is a place where contains water inside, such as ocean and seas. Ocean is a large body of salt water. Seas is a smaller areas of the ocean that are partly surrounded by land. It's very simple information, I think, and you all of you know this information, but let's warming up and recognize each other. Lakes and ponds are two forms of bodies of water. Lakes are smaller than sea or ocean that's surrounded by land. Rivers Rivers is flowing fresh water. The water in rivers moves downhill under the effect of gravity, by the way. Glaciers are a large body of slowly moving ice. They form when more snow falls than melts in the area. So the snow in the glaciers didn't melt quickly, but slowly moving ice. Ice caps are another form of the body of waters. Ice caps are large areas of ice at the north and south poles. Let's turn to another point. Here's the sheet of main points of our lesson. Let's start with a question. I will ask you a question. Why you see much more blue water than Greenland? I'm sorry again. So in this figure at your right hand side you can see the Earth's planet is covered with blue water because almost 3/4 of Earth's surface is covered with water. So water give our planet the color, the blue color. Water, you know that water exists as solid, liquid, gas. There are three states of water. The form of solid, which is ice. The ice is a solid water. You can find the ice in glaciers and polar ice caps. Liquid is the second form or state of water. You can find water in the form of liquid in rivers, lakes, oceans, ponds, and so on. Water vapor is an invisible gas, and the third form of the water, which existing water you can find in the atmosphere. When the sun heats the Earth's water, the surface water, it turns into vapor. With this vapor will be go upward in the atmosphere. Here two questions: locate and classify. So the first one is locate. Where on Earth can you find liquid water? Excellent, of course, rivers, lakes, oceans, seas, ponds, and so on. The second one is water in glaciers exists in which state of matter? Yes, of course, you can. You know that glacier contains ice, and ice is the solid state of water matter. Turning to another slide which talk about distribution of the world's water. You know that water is about three-fourths of the surface of the earth is covered with water. The three surfaces here, this first figure here, represent the three-fourths, all the three-fourths of the water. These three-fourths we can represent it by 100%. The three-fourths of water, 97% of them are salty water, which you can find in oceans and seas. Still 3% remains, which are represented in fresh water. This 3% of fresh water can be distributed as 79 of this fresh water are in the form of ice, which you can see in frozen state in glaciers and ice caps. Another 20% here in the form of groundwater. So still, if you make addition to 79 and 20%, still only 1% of fresh water, which is surface water. The surface water can be divided into many parts, as you see here in the last part of our figure. Some of them in lakes, some of them in soil moisture, some of water vapor, some are in rivers, some are in living organisms. So this is the distribution of world's water. Turning to another point which talk about our today's lesson part, which is surface water. Like I said, we can divide surface water into salt water. You can find salt water in the oceans and seas. Another part we can find water in or form is fresh water. We can find fresh water in rivers, ponds, lakes. So scientists classify water bodies by the type of water they contain. By the type of water they contain. This is very important information for you. So the two types, as I said, is salt water and fresh water. Here in comparing contrast between the two types. more you have to know that more than 97 over 100 of Earth's water is salt water, which we can find salt water in ocean and seas. You studied in math the fractions. So 97 part of 100 part of Earth's water is salt water. The remains, which is 3 parts over 100 part of the Earth's water, is fresh water. Rivers and lakes, ponds and glaciers, we can find fresh water inside, but not all the fresh water can be drinkable. Like I said previously, if you remember, only 1% of Earth's water is drinkable. The other 2% here not drinkable. You can find them in the form of frozen as well. Turning to another slide of our today's lesson, which is the last part. I here collect you some kind of different questions in the form of define, analyze, compare and contrast, explain, decide and evaluate, to be easy to understand, and covered all the parts of our today's lesson. Let's get started with the first question, which is about define. What is glacier? A glacier, you know, a glacier is a large body of slowly moving ice. Here is the second one, is analyze. You have to analyze the question. What causes water in rivers to move downhill? Like I said previously, you have to set the force of gravity. The force of gravity that make anything on the Earth's surface or pull it downhill. Here another form of our questions, compare and contrast. You know that compare you can describe the similarities, and contrast you can describe the difference between the things. You make a compare between them. The question said, how are ponds and lakes are alike? How are they different? You know that ponds and lakes are both bodies of water, fresh water, specifically fresh water. They are smaller than the ocean. The difference between them is that lakes are larger than ponds. Here is another form of our questions, is explain. You have to explain, where do people get drinking water? People get drinking water from the small amount of fresh water. Only 1% of Earth's water is drinkable. Only 1%. You can imagine 1% from 100% is drinkable. So they are available in rivers, lakes, and underground. So by the way, the fresh water inside rivers, lakes, and underground, they need to be treated to be drinkable. We can't drink water directly from rivers, lake, and underground. We must make treatment for the water to be drinkable and to be useful for us, for not harming us. Another question is to decide. Should you drink ocean water? You can decide yes or no. No, yes, of course, because ocean water is not healthy for drinking because it is salty water. Salty water, like we said. Excellent. The last question here is evaluate. I can answer with you here. Why is fresh water an important resource? Important resource. It's very important because it make us alive. Give us the life. You know that water is important for many reasons. People need fresh water to live. And another importance for the fresh water is the amount of the fresh water. That you know that the amount of fresh water is very small. It represents the 3 parts over 100 part of all water in Earth. So we must keep water. We must not waste water, because water is very important factor in our life and give us the life. Water is important for animals, for us as a human, for plants as well. So this is the end of our today's lesson. I hope you enjoy and understand. See you again in next videos. Bye bye.